Hey guys, Pastor P here. Hope you're doing well today. I'm doing good. Thank you again for your prayers and your concerns and for checking in on me, checking in on us. And everything's going good. Just still taking it easy and no more little vertigo scares. Everything is going well. So today we find ourselves in Mark chapter 6. And I got to thinking about this, that if the news was as newsy then as it is now, like every 5 minutes you're seeing something, and the news today, boy, if you just sat and watched it, it would certainly invoke fear and doubt and hopelessness and lawlessness and godlessness, not only in our nation, but in the world as a whole. And you would get all just worked up and stressed over so many things. But I'm thinking about the thing about Jesus. As we look through the Gospel of Mark, if we were doing a play-by-play on Jesus, I mean, he shows up with friends, bringing a friend and setting him before him, and a lame man, and he's being healed. And then we hear about a shriveled hand healed in the synagogue. We hear about things happening on the Sabbath. We hear about the wind and the waves. Listen to him calming the wind and the waves. And then we hear about there was a demon-possessed man, and you wouldn't believe what had happened. And we were right there. We were eyewitnesses to it. He sent those demons into those pigs. They asked for it, and he did it. And they rushed down, went into the lake and drowned. It was amazing. Should have been there. And then there's more stories. There's Jairus' daughter. Here he was, a synagogue leader. Jesus, come to my house. Come to my house. Just speak the word. Come to my house. And all you have to do is just speak it, and she will be healed. And he says, I'm coming with you, Jairus. I'm coming with you. And so while he's coming, the crowds are following him. And there was the woman with the issue of blood, and there she is. She's been suffering in her body, so suffering in her mind, suffering in her social status, suffering in every area of her life. She's broken, but all she needed to do was hear that Jesus was coming, and she knew all she needed to do was touch the hem of his garment, and you wouldn't believe it. While he was on his way to Jairus' house, there she is, and he felt dunamis. He felt power go out of him. She couldn't just touch him and wither away. She couldn't just touch him and sneak away. Why? Because faith had touched him. And we just get so excited. We just get so pumped up. What's on today's agenda, Jesus? What are you going to do today? And we don't have to go very far, because people are questioning, who is this man? Isn't he the carpenter's son? I know him. You know Jesus. He used to live around the corner over there in that one place. You go past that tree and turn at that red fence. He lived right down that street right there. Him and his family. Who is he? This is Jesus we're talking about. Oh, yeah, we grew up with him. Went to school with him right over there. Who is this guy? Just imagine the headlines of the day. And he's out there just doing Jesus-sized things. He's out there just believing by faith that he can. He's out there with authority, just healing and teaching and preaching and delivering and just doing, again, Jesus-sized things. Human things, okay? Human things driven by divine purpose. You, a human thing, driven by divine purpose. And it was becoming questionable, and his family began to question. And he knew he could only do very little where they were, because they doubted so much. And rather than just believe by faith that, dang, maybe God did call him. Maybe God did anoint him. Maybe God did bless him. Maybe why are all those crowds always around and we can't even get near him anymore? Okay? And so we find out that as the crowds continue to gather, and up to this point, he's selected his 12, his disciples, now turned into apostles, because he's sending them out. He's sending them out 2 by 2 to teach, preach, heal, deliver. And he gave them authority. He gave them authority. They didn't go out on their own thinking they can do something. They didn't give any self-imposed titles or any of that kind of stuff just to kind of keep up with the lingo of the day. They didn't give themselves the authority. He gave them the authority to go forth and preach and teach and heal and deliver and set folks free from stuff. And it's just beautiful how all this is unwinding. And can you just imagine as the crowd was moving through that region and as Jesus got closer to different towns and different people and different needs, okay, the people were getting excited. And people began to say, whoa, this must be Elijah. Whoa, maybe it's John the Baptist. Maybe it's, here he is with these miraculous powers. That maybe John the Baptist has come back from the dead. Maybe he's a prophet, like one of those from long ago. And Herod, the leader of the day, King Herod, he was like, whoa, I had John the Baptist beheaded. Maybe this is him. He's been raised from the dead. And Mark 6 tells us the story about how Herod gave in to public pressure, how Herod cared more about what people thought of him, how Herod was, John the Baptist had spoken some truth into Herod's life. He called things as they were, as Herod was, had his brother's wife, you know what I'm saying? And he feared what people would say. He feared what people would say if he made promises and didn't fulfill them. And so one day when Herodes's daughter, it was like it says, the opportune time came on his birthday. Herod gave a big banquet for his high officials and military commanders and leading men of Galilee. And when the daughter of Herodias, Herod's wife, came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guests. And the king said to the girl, ask me for anything you want, and I'll give it to you. And he promised her with an oath, whatever you ask, I'll give you up to half of my kingdom. And she turned to her mom and she says, what shall I ask for? What shall I asked for? And it was the mama, Herodias, who wanted John killed. And she told her daughter, says, I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter. And the king was distressed because he might have been upset with John for speaking the truth, but he enjoyed listening to John. He enjoyed the encouragement and the hope that John brought. But he sent an executioner who went in and beheaded John the Baptist over this selfish reason and presented it to the girl, and she gave it to her mother. And it goes on to say that John the Baptist's disciples came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. So why do I share that with you? Because there are outside sources trying to mess up what's going on. There are other things going on behind the scene trying to silence truth. Okay, and folks getting upset, Herodias getting upset with what was going on, getting upset with truth being shared. Okay, and so their thing is they think they're going to silence truth. By silencing John the Baptist, they think they're going to silence truth. Well, no can do, because there's Jesus. There's Jesus out there still bringing forth truth. And he was trying to get his disciples, because when they came back and reported what they had done and the things they taught and the changes that were happening in people's lives, he goes, come on, let's go off by ourselves and let's get some rest. Let's talk about these things. And they tried to go off by themselves, but a large crowd just kept pressing in around them. And Jesus couldn't deny that there was great need in the house. And so he looked upon them with compassion, and he just began to teach. And during this time, the disciples were coming to him, and it's a remote place. There's no fast food. There are no food trucks out here, Jesus. We got to feed these folks. They've been sitting here for a long time. We got to feed these folks. And he's like, we got to feed them. You give them something to eat. And it was kind of twofold. It was to help the people, and it was also for the disciples to see and to walk in the authority in which they had been given. And so he did inventory, figured out what all they've got, 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he directed the disciples to have the people sit down. Let's bring some order to this. They sat down in hundreds and fifties. And it says, taking the 5 loaves and 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. And it just kept breaking. It just kept feeding. In fact, they ended up having leftovers. There was so much, fed all the people. And it says that the number of men that had eaten was 5,000. So if you think about the number of men had eaten was 5,000, and then there's the women, and then there's the children, and they had leftovers. What a blessing. What an extraordinary blessing. Ordinary bread and fish, blessed by God, became extraordinary and fed the masses. Remember that. And later on, after that, he's still trying to get some time alone with his disciples so that they can rest and so that he can pray. And it talks about how the disciples went out into the middle of the sea, and next thing you know, they're straining at the oars. It says the wind was against them. And shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, just walking along the water. Okay? And here they were. They had seen all these miraculous things. They knew and know who he is. And yet they're afraid. And he says, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. I'm encouraging you today, as you listen to the headlines and the things going on each and every day, take courage. Don't be afraid. I use today to remind you of all the miracles, those written and those not, that Christ continued to do among the people and gave authority to those who believe. So keep those in mind as you hear the current headlines. Don't be afraid. Take courage. God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. I'll see you again soon. Bye now.